Hey, welcome today to Pro Mindset Podcast. This is your host, Craig Domann, and today I have a gentleman all the way from Europe, Joe Jacobi, and Joe has a very decorated history, a very successful past, and he's an author. He's a former Olympian, gold medal winner. He's been the CEO of a governing body for sport in the U.S. He currently lives in Europe. He coaches people on life. I'm sure, Joe, I didn't do the best job introducing you. So why don't you share with us, what is your banner story? What's your billboard when people want to know about you that they need to know?
Thank you, Craig. Actually, that was a very nice introduction. And, look, on my LinkedIn headline, I have Olympic gold medalist. I have performance coach. I have transition expert. I have author. I really like to think of my life as like a house that has a couple of rooms in it. There's a room for sort of my coaching practice and really improving at that. There's a room for health and wellness. I love to move and be outside in nature. I really enjoy. I'm still active paddling on rivers and paddling in the sea. I won the gold medal that I won at the Olympic Games was in the doubles canoe and whitewater canoe slalom. We'll get more into that in a moment. Another room in that house is a creative room where I like to write and create. Writing is really important to me. And then there's a room in that house that is all about relationships and most importantly, my relationship with my girlfriend, Maria. We've been together for almost 5 years. And, that's when those 4 rooms are healthy, life is really good. And I think that's kind of that is my headline. And I think when I do those things, I'm awake in life. I'm happy in life, and I'm in the best position I can be to serve others and be of help to others.
Okay, so let's review the blueprint for your home.
Okay.
You have a fitness room, a relationship room,
a coaching
creative room,
and
a coaching room.
Yeah, and a creative room. Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you also have an archive room of all your accomplishments as an athlete.
I know it's there. Like, I know that I have a past, of course, that is my life today. I mean, you can't separate where we're going. It's very hard to determine where we're going without having some peace and some clarity and some context for the road that you've traveled. I mentioned to you as we were talking before we started recording, I live 50 meters from the canoeing venue where my canoe partner, Scott Strausball, and I won a gold medal at the 1992 Olympic Games. It was the first and only gold medal in the sport of whitewater canoe slalom. And the thing is, I didn't come here. I didn't move far away from the United States to move closer to this place where I had a good athletic experience. That is something that happened here. But really, I moved here because it puts me in the position of really learning something new and actually learning how to put a great athletic accomplishment in its place, to kind of understand its place. But really, what do I want to do with that? Like, what should success at the Olympics, how can success at the Olympics be helpful to other people? And that's really what I think athletic history and accomplishment is about. And I'm really grateful for those lessons that I learned in the moment of not accomplishing a gold medal at the Olympics or a national championship or competing on the national team, but it was having a goal and believing in the person I was becoming as I pursued something bigger than myself, something that I wasn't sure that I could accomplish, but I believed in the process of how that was helping me to develop as a person. And so I still believe in those kind of pursuits today in my life. And so I still have goals in health and wellness that are kind of a little bit above me, a little bit beyond me, that challenge me, that aren't like a sure thing that I'll accomplish, but I believe in the person that I continue to grow and become by pursuing them.
Okay, Joe, we could probably talk for 3 hours. Offline, you showed, for the people that are watching this broadcast, you showed out your window, where the Olympic competition was.
Yeah.
And it's probably unprecedented that somebody would move from a foreign country to live in the place where they might have had their biggest accomplishment in worldly terms.
Yes.
Winning a gold medal is no simple feat. Very few people get to do it. Very few people even make the Olympic teams for their country, let alone get a chance to compete in the Olympics. But you have your life's work is really about you're really a teacher and a coach. Is that fair?
I think it is interesting. I like to get a little granular between the difference in teaching and coaching and even mentoring and managing, for that matter. I think that there are slight differences between those two. I can do any of them. And I think one of the things when we talk about guiding, leading, coaching, I think when we think about the people that we're working with, Craig, I think it's really important that the people we're working with know which hat we're wearing. Like, hey, is Craig wearing the coaching hat today? Because when you're wearing the coaching hat, like, I'm thinking that we are making an assumption that the answer, the solution, already exists inside of the other person, and we're helping to pull that out. That's what coaching kind of looks like to me. Whereas teaching, mentoring, even managing, that suggests like, hey, I know something that you need to know, and I'm going to impart that wisdom to you in some different ways. And both, I think, for a good leader, I think it's good to have skills in all of these areas. But what I think is really important in leadership is for the people you're leading to be very clear about which hat that you're wearing. Because if you're wearing the coaching hat a lot, which is a wonderful way to work with someone, but it takes more time, takes a little more patience. But then, like, the situation, something comes up and you need to act very quickly, and we really don't have as much time to coach, and we sort of need to manage the situation, and we need to impart some wisdom so that we actually handle the resistance, the challenge that's in front of us to the best of our ability. So yeah, but to your original question, I can accept both of those hats. I prefer, if I have time and the patience is there, to wear that coaching hat. I love that hat.
Okay, so let's stay in the coaching room.
Okay.
And let's put on the coaching hat.
Okay.
What are the 2 or 3 biggest challenges that people face today in finding peace and freedom in whatever they do and wherever they are?
I love this. We could actually spend 3 hours just on this, but I think the first thing that comes to mind for me in that question, Craig, is that is the sense of, does that person have purpose? Because I think when we talk about things like freedom and peace and aliveness, people are being guided by something, but are they being guided by someone else's belief in them, or are they being guided by their own belief in themselves and really what they want? And by the way, that's not a judgment or saying that that's wrong. If you are, sometimes, your parents might say to you, Craig, you'd be a great lawyer, and it's like, you sort of feel like, oh my gosh, my parents think I could be a lawyer, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, that could be good. It's just sometimes we hit a moment where we realize, but wait, did I really want to be a lawyer? So what comes up to me first there is purpose. And I think is purpose, we don't have to be perfect on. It's a work in progress, but I do think it is something that if you know it to be absent, or it's not there, I think that can be very instructive in the question that you asked about feeling freedom, feeling peace, and how to go about that. So that's always kind of this one of the primary points of the start line in a coaching relationship for me is really seeing where we are in terms of purpose with a client, like what really moves them out of bed in the morning, like what gets them excited about waking up and taking on the day and pursuing the path that they're on.
Okay, so if I'm one of your coaching clients, how do we start? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think that, I'm always curious is like, why did people want coaching? Like there's usually something there. There's a point of pain, maybe point of suffering, or maybe a lack of joy, or I feel like there should be more here than what's here. And so I'm always curious to investigate what that could be. And I guess that one of the things that I also think, and I say this about my own coaching experiences, not when I'm the coach, but when I'm hiring a coach for myself for a particular situation, I will go into it, Craig. I'll go into that situation as a coachee with a goal. There was a reason that I wanted to work with a particular coach, and I will have that goal, but I reserve a bit of space to be open to discovering something in that coaching relationship that I wasn't expecting. So it's good to, like, I don't just go seek out coaching because people told me coaching was good. So I give you a couple of examples just for me. Again, I'm the person that was seeking coaching. You can see behind me, if you're watching on video, I have a couple of tall paddles behind me. Those are kayak paddles that I use in the sea. And I made the change from paddling on rivers, not the change, but I wanted to learn how to paddle in the ocean, to surf these offshore waves out in the middle of the sea in the direction of the wind. It's called paddling a surf ski. And I sought out coaching in that. And of course, I wanted, very specifically, I wanted to learn to surf offshore waves in a specially designed kayak for this discipline with more grace and less effort. But I knew from my time on the river that I wanted to be open to, just leave some space open to discovering something that I wasn't expecting. And so in that process, I've become a little better at surfing waves in a single surf ski and when I paddle in the double surf ski with Maria. But here's what I didn't expect. In the process of the coaching, I was able to take an entire step-by-step process of surfing waves in the ocean, which, by the way, made no sense to me at first because, I thought surfing waves, what do the listeners of this podcast think of when I say surfing waves? You're thinking, dude, surfing waves, like you're feeling it, like it's this artistic expression. And I have this coach that's telling me there's this 7-step process to surfing a wave. I'm like, man, talk about taking the fun out of it. Like you're giving me this step-by-step process to it. And the coach, his name is Boyan. He's this Bulgarian who's been living in southern Spain for 12 years. Amazing coach. And he says, Joe, you're not getting it. I'm not trying to turn you into a process-driven scientist of surfing. What I'm trying to do is to give you some framework, some step-by-step to enhance the art of surfing. And that's when it kind of hit me like a light bulb that there's inside of us, we have an inner artist and an inner scientist. And we all have this inside of us and we gravitate towards one or the other, but we use both. And I started to take this 7-step process and I didn't just apply it to surfing waves in the sea, but I applied it to my pursuits in business, in relationships, in health and wellness. And, for the last 3 months, I've been publishing a weekly newsletter called Thinking in Waves. in which I take these lessons that I've learned from, and I'm still processing from the 7-step process of surfing wave. And I give people stories and experiences, these short essays of how they can apply that to, or how their life or how their business or how their relationship is a lot like surfing a wave. And this is what I mean. Like, you go into these relationships with something very specific you want to improve upon. And then you allow a little space for something magic to happen beyond that. And I'm just been blown away by the response to my writing of Thinking in Waves. Not just its growth, but just the impact that it's had on people, the notes I get back from people. I did a coaching session a couple of weeks ago where a client literally went through his entire situation that he wanted coaching upon by talking to me in the language of waves. He was talking about currents and wave breaks and the wave he's on and transitions. And I mean, if you read it, it makes sense, but I couldn't believe it. Just someone who has never been in the ocean surfing waves in a kayak before is literally sizing up his challenges at a medical practice, running a medical practice, in the language of waves. It's amazing. So that's what I think about when I'm thinking about starting with a client, is just seeing where they are and giving them that space for knowing what they want and how willing they are to open up themselves to something really special to happen beyond what they really want.
All right, this is a test. What are the 7? What are the 7 steps? Just spew them out, spit them out. Because one thing I love about nature is it allows you to create analogies to everything.
Yeah.
Whether it's the forest, the trees, the mountains, the rivers, the waves. So what are the 7 steps?
You got it. So there's, as you said, there are 7 steps. The first one is about ourselves. And then the next 5 are about the wave. And then the last one is about acknowledging the process. Okay. So the first one is called basic speed. And basic speed is just, is like your all day, everyday pace. Like, this really gets into not how big the waves are or how good the waves are or how the waves are going to help you or hurt you or whatever. No, this is just about your disposition for improving yourself to be like ready to surf. And so the better that you can improve your all day, everyday speed, which is just your all around applied to life and business and relationships, this has everything to do with your how you manage energy. And this is something that you can improve upon. It has nothing to do with the waves. So step 1 is basic speed. Step 2 is gets into the waves. So now we are talking wave selection. People are just choosing terrible waves in life. They're choosing the wrong things, the wrong people, and the wrong opportunities. And what they see are like big, shiny waves. And what that's covering up are like really small, efficient, effective waves that will take you to where you want to go and ultimately create more opportunities. So step 2 is wave selection. Step 3 is direction. And I love this one because like, if you look on LinkedIn, everyone in business is saying like, dude, catch the wave, surf the wave. And direction suggests like, really? Like, what if the wave is going in the opposite direction of where you want to go? Or even worse, we talked about not having purpose at the beginning of our conversation, Craig. People who will just surf any wave in any direction are usually people that are lacking in purpose. So listen, if my goal in the sea is to go north towards the lighthouse, it doesn't mean that the waves are always going to be going my direction, but I'm going to keep going north towards the lighthouse. I'm not going to go west out into the middle of nowhere because I'll just have to correct at some point to come back to the lighthouse. So step 3 is direction. And then step 4 and 5 gets a little bit more granular into the elements of surfing the waves and extracting what I call the free energy that exists in waves. So the step 4 is, I just wrote about this today, timing. So timing really gets into, this balance between too soon, which is like a lot of waste of energy, and too late, which is just like an on-ramp to desperation. My idea is that free energy will pass over a hard effort that's poorly timed in favor of a soft touch that matches the rhythm of the wave. Step 5 is acceleration. So the thing is about acceleration, and this isn't just your own ability to accelerate, but it's using the slope of the wave in the right way. It plays off of timing to increase a speed, speed more capable that you could generate on your own by just adding in not just a little bit more pressure, but a more pressure at the right time. Step 6 is the surf itself. And I think step 6, is surfing the wave. It gets into also the golden rule of surfing, which is that no matter what you want to do in life, whether you want to, keep doing what you're doing, or you want to pivot hard to the left or hard to the right, you want to change directions, the best thing you can do is surf the wave you're on to the best of your ability. That is the golden rule of surfing. There is energy and opportunity in surfing the current wave you're on, even if you don't like it, that will make your next transition better. And step 7, and I just want to laugh a little bit about this because step 7 is the step I'm working on in my own life the most. When Boyan, you have to imagine this big, like 6'4" Bulgarian guy living in southern Spain with like this thick Bulgarian accent, walking me through the steps. And then he said, step 7 is called Yeehaw. And then he looks at me and he says, Joe, I don't mean just yeehaw, but like you mean it, like you're from Texas, And we just started laughing because I think Boyan, he actually said this. He said, we really need to enjoy the waves that we're trying to ride. And that literally when we smile, we relax our body in a way that actually aligns us more with the waves that we want to surf. And I'm literally working on doing this, Craig. Like step 7 is one of the biggest things I want to improve upon is like, I want to, in the middle of a surf, I want to say, yeehaw, more often. I want to have that presence to realize this is meant to be fun. This is meant to be enjoyed. I remember even in my Olympic years of canoeing, even when at the Olympic Games, photographers would come and ask us like, why are you guys always so serious? Why don't you ever smile? And like, aren't you having fun? I'm like, I'm having the time of my life. And they're like, well, it doesn't look like it. And like, I don't want to apologize for that because I really do enjoy being out on the water. But yeah, I'm always thinking about my relationship with the water. And at this stage of life, I'm 54 years old and I want to be out on the water for a long, long time to come. And I think step 7, yeehaw, is really important. So those are the 7 steps. That's and every one of them has just this beautiful application to how we live, to how we work, and how we connect with people a little bit better.
I love that. Go back to step 6. What's like the banner on 6? Not the description, just what's it called again?
It's surf the wave. Step 6 is surf the wave. So now, like, the first 5 have like gotten us, onto the wave. Now we're on the wave. And I think what step 6 does, Craig, about surfing the wave, that, number one, I do think it highlights that golden rule of surfing. The best thing that we can do, no matter what we want to do, is to surf the wave we're on to the best of our ability. But I think it also brings up some realities about waves and why I call this whole movement thinking in waves. is that everyone can imagine what a wave looks like to them. It's like a wave is a force of energy that rises and it collapses and it rises again. And so that means that waves are not meant to be forever. They don't last forever. They don't always go in our direction forever. But I think as you increase your understanding of waves and how they work, that you start to understand the opportunity of waves. And again, the real opportunities of surfing waves is to extract the free energy that exists in them, right? There's a slope of a wave. And if you can be on that slope of the wave, you are getting like free energy from the force of the wave that's helping you to propel you in the direction you want to go with less, with less energy from you and more energy from the wave. That's why I keep using this expression, free energy. But, you've got to put yourself in the right disposition to tap into it. But since a wave, it rises and then it collapses again, you have to really get granular and detailed about what it takes to surf a wave for the life of the wave. And once you understand that, it makes transitioning to another wave more doable, more likely, and with more of a plan. And again, the better you get at linking from one wave to another wave, the more free energy that you can take with you in the transitions that you want to make in life and business and in relationships.
Joe, I love that. I love that. Just the whole concept.
It's really cool. It's really cool, Craig.
Well, here's just me like putting myself into that concept. Number 7 to me is let it go and be fully present. Not be thinking about the next wave, not be thinking about the last wave, be fully present in this one.
Yeah.
And then another one is acceleration to me is momentum.
Yeah.
It's as you get the momentum in life going. Sometimes you have those days where things go great and you've got a great attitude, and then people hold the door for you and people let you cut in when you're driving, and just things that sometimes they don't do.
Yeah.
But you've got the momentum. The free energy thing is phenomenal because there's a lot of times in life when you feel like you're swimming upstream. Well, if you're swimming with the stream, it's not just your energy and your effort. It's the universe's, it's nature.
100%.
Right? And so you would never see someone try to surf or canoe or any of those type of water sports against the grain. I mean, they're not going to go against the wave. It would be silly.
Yeah. It is interesting. I mean, there are times in our activity where sometimes we go a little bit against only to make a turn to come down and go down in the direction of the wind. And also sometimes in the competition in the sea, they set up these courses like a triangular course around buoys where there's a little bit of paddling that happens against the wind. And I will say, I do think there's something to learn when you are, when you come up in those situations where you are paddling or swimming into the wind or in or against the current. It's not ideal. It's not perfect, but there are a lot of things you can learn and a lot of things you can do to be more effective, even when those conditions happen. Honestly, to me, Craig, I think a lot of this also comes back to step 1, which is basic speed, and basic speed, what the underpinnings of that to me is, I read a book. It's an old book. It was, old. I don't know what old is, but the book was written in the 1990s, but I was turned on to it in 2005. It's The Power of Full Engagement by Jim Loehr, a sports psychologist. And Jim Loehr and Jack Groppel founded the High Performance Institute down in Florida. They were both inducted into U.S. Tennis Hall of Fame recently. Jack is an exercise physiologist and Jim is a sports psychologist. And they were transferring a lot of these ideals of high performance in sport, especially tennis, which was what they knew, into business. But the idea of this book that Jim Lair wrote, The Power of Full Engagement, was that we don't fail to do things that we want to do for a lack of time. We fail to do them for a lack of energy. And so one of the things, you asked me at the beginning of the conversation, kind of where does things start with a coaching engagement with a client? The ideas of Jack Roppel and Jim Lair just hit me like a bolt of lightning in 2005. And I've kind of been pretty changed ever since. I'm all about energy. I really don't care that much about time. If I have the energy to do something, that I'll find a way to get it done. It's always that. And just because I have the time to do it does not mean that it'll get done. So energy is really important to me. So I'm always kind of wondering about people's capacity to get done what they want to get done. If people tell me that they're being squeezed from every direction and that, they can't fit in time for themselves on their calendar, to exercise or to spend time at home or to eat well or whatever it might be. To me, it's not like a time blocking exercise at that point. It's an energy management, and not just, it starts with the expenditure of energy, like where's that going? And also the replenishment of energy. All of this lives in step one, basic speed. The better that our all day, everyday speed, gets, like the more that we can improve that, we can just improve that by just a little bit, over time. Our ability and opportunity to catch waves that are the right kind of waves going in our direction gets much, much better if our basic speed improves. And so, energy management lives there. So I'm always thinking about what are people's capacity to get done what they want to do. They can have a great idea, but again, I'm still not sold at that point. Like, but what's your capacity to get that great idea done? And it's not just a matter of time. It's just not a matter of purpose. It's literally having the energy to really move that, to advance that idea down the field.
How do people improve their energy? You talked about capacity.
Yep.
You talked about exertion.
Sure.
And you talked about replenishment. Everybody's got energy until they don't.
Right.
Everybody's got energy, especially when they wake up in the morning. Everybody's got energy until they're running on empty.
Yep.
How do people best serve their best interests by increasing their energy?
All right. So I am not going to go straight to eating better or working out better. I'm going to go a little bit differently here. I think the easiest place where people can make gains on energy management and energy improvement is in rest and recovery. And here I'm not just really talking about sleeping, but really how they're resting and recovering while they're awake. So I actually came up with a list of different kinds of rest and recovery people can do in an increment as small as 1 minute and up to like a 2-week vacation. Ultimately it's the same muscle. So, a lot of business leaders schedule these Zoom meetings back to back to back to back. And it's insane. Like there's just nothing that'll wear you down. And look, I don't want to oversell the benefit of 1 minute of rest. And usually what that 1 minute of rest looks like for my clients is the kind of traditional box breathing. So box breathing is a 4-step breathing exercise where you inhale on a 4-second count, you hold your breath on a 4-second count, you exhale for 4 seconds, and then you rest on a 4 count. So that's 16 seconds. and then you repeat that 4 times in that 64 seconds. And again, I don't want to oversell what that can do, but what I will say, if you can get that in 4 or 5 times a day on back-to-back Zoom calls, that you're sending a message to that between your body and mind. Hey, what's Craig trying to do here? Like, something's different. We're not just jumping into the next call. We're taking a moment. And the same muscle that you use to execute that box breathing that's 1 minute is the same muscle that you would use to take a 5-minute break and maybe stand up, stretch, get a cup of tea, which is the same muscle that you might use to take a 15-minute break, which is to step outside the door in Colorado Springs and maybe go for a walk around the neighborhood for a couple minutes, or maybe get up out of the chair and go sit in another chair, or have a little yoga mat out where you might do some stretching, or some dumbbell weights where you might do a little bit of exercise. All of this is the same muscle. And then that's the same muscle you would use to take a real 30 or 60-minute lunch break, which is the same muscle that you would use to sort of set boundaries on what the end of your day is going to be and when work is going to stop, which is the same muscle you're going to use on a weekend, where you're really committing your weekend to the things outside of work that really get you excited, which is the same muscle that you use to go on 2-week vacation. It's the same muscle. It just takes time to exercise that muscle. And so when you ask me about energy management, I'm just looking for the smallest, most actionable step that people can take, which is usually about a minute of box breathing. And so here we're not thinking about the expenditure of energy, but the recovery of energy. Let's just talk about why recovery matters so much. If we think of a swimmer like Michael Phelps or a sprinter like Usain Bolt, we like to think about how fast and overpowering and dominating these guys were and athletes. I don't believe that's where they won. That's really where they got the chops to win all the gold medals in the Olympics and set all the world records that they set. I think they got those levels of performance because they recovered from hard training better than their competition. Not because they executed a higher level of work, but they were able to recover from hard work better than the rest of the field. And when you understand that the more quickly and more effectively that you can recover, essentially bring your energy down to a base level, you have more control and more agency in deciding when to ramp up your energy to a high level, as opposed to living in this fictional world where this maximal level of high energy is just going to last for an 8-hour day. That is like the most insane way to kind of go about work, is this belief that we're just going to live on some kind of Everest level plateau for 8 hours every day. It doesn't work like that. You can't breathe up there. You can't recover up there. All you can do is get tired and overwhelmed and anxious and drained on top of Everest. So you got to find ways to come back down to lower elevations. And the more that you can do that, the more frequently that you can kind of interrupt bouts of high energy with bouts of bringing the energy level down, that's going to have the quickest impact, the most effective impact on changing how you decide to use the energy that you have on the projects and the people that are worthy of that energy.
Joe, most people, and I did this in law school, I relied upon Mountain Dew. And most people rely upon Red Bull. They rely upon, anything that's going to, caffeine, anything that's going to pep them up.
Yeah.
Right. What I've learned is the last handful of years is the more sleep I get, the better. And then I've been doing breath work.
Awesome.
And so I'm very familiar with the 4-count breath work. But sometimes I'll do breath work for an hour. And I don't do it every day like that because I don't have time to do it like that. But I'll bet I do it at least 2 to 3 times a week where I get an hour in. Those days, I smoke it. I smoke it.
It's so good.
I'm on fire those days. Okay. So when we go back to our base, I'm going to call it baseline speed, basic speed, it's It's really our tempo, all that stuff. In addition to energy management, what's the next most critical thing people need to think about to improve themselves?
Well, I think one of the things that basic speed or baseline speed really gets me thinking about, Craig, and I know I don't want to speak blanketly for like the entire world, but I think the consistency piece starts to kind of come in here about the effort and the actions, like the fundamental things that we can do every day. Like even like I love the way you talk about breath work. I would just say like, why not just develop the 5-minute version of breath work? You're still sending that signal between mind and body to say, hey, Craig is trying to communicate something to us here. Like, let's get on this. Maybe we can really turn those 1-hour sessions that we're doing 2 to 3 times a week into like super powering sessions by doing a little bit on the other days. And so I think there's something about consistency, and I think finding that way to do that little bit every day is very powerful in whatever the activities are when we're talking about energy. And that isn't just physical. There can be a physical practice, but I also think that on the mental, emotional, spiritual side, that can look like journaling. It could look like mindfulness practice. It could look like, I do a creative exercise every morning. I've been doing it every morning since 2012, where I do an ideation exercise where I write down 10 ideas. And there's a structure to it. It's usually 10 ideas around a particular topic, but I don't make up the topic until I'm there with my journal. I write these in paper and pencil every day. And I do journal every day as well. But I just find all that level of consistency and writing it down. Like, I know how easy technology makes it for us to do this on a screen, but there is something about moving my hand and holding a pencil, and it kind of puts me in a position, I feel like, to really open a deeper frequency of communication with myself when I write to myself. And that's what the journaling practice does. That's what the ideation exercise does. But I think all of this really plays into how I show up and how I prepare myself for the day. By the way, that journaling practice, I think, is something that I learned when I was an athlete. I still use more or less a very similar format, a very similar principle that I used when I was keeping a training log when I was training as an athlete in canoeing. And I'll share that journaling framework with you and the people listening here in the show notes as well. So it's a Google Doc that anyone can use or to help them decide their own journaling framework. But there's a part in that journaling framework where, I ask myself some questions in the morning. And one of those questions is, what's the focus of my relationships today? And that's not just like a list of people that I plan to talk to, but it's a way of giving some intention to those people and to those relationships. And with the idea, the hope that I'll show up as a better version of myself in service to those people. So like, this morning while you were sleeping, I was writing Craig's name in my journal this morning because I knew we'd be talking. Like, it was a way of kind of giving some intention to this conversation before I went for my morning run today. And I think it helps. I ultimately, if you and I are going to take time to talk and to talk in a way that's of help and of service to you and to the people that are listening to us, yeah, I want to show up as a better version of myself. So I just backtrack from there. That's why I just believe so much in this. The better that I can improve my basic speed, the better that I can align with the waves that I want to surf. And this is a wave I'd like to surf well today.
I like that. Well, one of the things with Pro Mindset, and I just finished my book. It's going to come out here in about a month.
Nice.
But,
congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. Is the idea that, can you imagine being out there thinking about catching a wave, and the wave looks remarkably similar to one that was yesterday or the day before that you crashed and burned on? So you hesitate. So you wait for the next one. And the next one reminds you of something, your biggest spill ever. And so you get paralyzed because it's like you can't, your past is holding you back. So not only is it, if I was gonna add an eighth one to
please,
your friend's framework, it would be a subset. It would be 1A, and it would be something along the lines of, when you get out on the water, you don't bring anything with you. No baggage, no backpacks with past memories. You leave it all behind. You leave it on shore. Because when you're bringing that with you, memories in my mind are created through emotion. So if you can remember that wave looks like one that was a no-go, it has an emotional connection. Otherwise, you wouldn't remember it. Because if you're surfing, you might see millions of waves over decades, but you're only going to remember 10 or 20.
Yeah.
But they're going to be the ones that you're emotionally connected to. And so you also, on the positive side, you might see a wave and you might have a vibe that, oh, wow, that was the big one. That was the best one I ever did.
Yeah.
And maybe you get a little artificial excitement there, which is no shame in that. So when I say leave your backpack on the shore, I didn't say leave your positive memories on shore.
Yeah.
I'm saying leave your negative ones. Because if you don't, it gets heavy. You get paralyzed. You hesitate. I think it slows down your thinking, slows down your reaction time, slows down your everything.
I love this. And even though it wasn't a part of Boyan's 7 steps, I wrote a book. I wrote a book a couple of years ago called Slalom. So this was more focused on the river side of what I do, not the ocean side of what I do. So I kind of encapsulated all of these lessons learned from navigating whitewater rivers, transferred to navigating the river of life. And, in rivers in the United States, there's a class system for the rapids. Class 1 is like basic flat water. Class 6 is like death defying, really hard, really challenging. Chance of death is, possible. So there are these kind of 6 river classes, and there's a class in there, a chapter about relationships. And my favorite one is called The Lost Art of Paddling Together. And so I kind of recount, I don't know, you can see behind me. I know you see the tall paddles. There's some short ones behind me. Those are the canoe paddles. And those are the canoe paddles that Maria and I use when we paddle the river canoe. Not like a big open canoe, an actual racing canoe. But during just after the pandemic, there were still some restrictions, some really challenging restrictions in this country. And we could exercise, but we couldn't leave the city limits. And so I had brought a canoe down into the city of Yeda, where Maria lives, and we were paddling the doubles canoe out on the river every chance we had, like during this part of the pandemic. And so I had this chapter. It's called The Lost Art of Paddling Together. And I talked about this idea. It wasn't so much the waves of the situations in life. This was more about relationships. But it got into this idea about these backpacks, about this, the bags that we bring with, the baggage we bring with us in life. And I agree with you. I talked about in the book about leaving this on shore. And I said in the book, don't worry. You couldn't lose it if you wanted to. Like, it will come back to you when you're done paddling. But you are so right that you've got to make the intention of leaving the bag on the shore. Don't worry, it's not going anywhere. No one is going to take your bag of stuff that you're working on. But you are right. I do believe you have every capability of putting that bag on the side of the river and going out and paddling more lightly, more freely, and in service to something. And that bag is going to be waiting for you. And by the way, if you do what you are saying, that bag will come back to you, but that bag may come back to you a little bit lighter than the way you left it before. And that is powerful life stuff right there when that happens.
Well, with my clients, one of the things when in my coaching, I help them take that stuff out of the backpack.
Yeah.
So it's gone. Now, sometimes it still comes back, but you have to forgive yourself. You have to forgive others. And you have to understand that sometimes your disappointments and whatnot were for a purpose that was bigger than what you thought it was.
Yeah.
And so sometimes to move forward, you have to move backwards. You have to be aware that this what happened in your, just like you when I asked you, you don't have an athlete, you don't have a trophy room. You said, well, that's in my past.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But it's like, you've got to frame your success as an athlete and redefine who you are now because of those experiences, because of what you benefited, what you overcame, the obstacles, the injuries, the challenges, whatever it might have been. It doesn't mean you walk around with your gold medal around your neck all the time. It doesn't mean you tell everybody you talk to, hey, I won the gold medal. No, it's who you became because of winning that gold medal. On the way to winning the gold medal, who you became, that's who you want to show up.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that?
Well, I would even add there's one more piece that I've been sharing more and more about, not just the person that I became on the way to winning, but some of the ways I've tried to make peace with the person I became after winning. So what I mean by that, this happens differently for everyone. I had that moment, that really wonderful moment. I wouldn't trade it for anything. It was great. It was wonderful winning the Olympics. I was young. I was 22 years old when we won the Olympics. My canoe partner, Scott, was 29. It turned out to be his final competition. I continued to compete after that. But I didn't go to the river that morning with the goal of winning the Olympic Games. Scott and I went to the river that morning with the idea to paddle to the best of our ability, to really paddle to the level that we trained at, through the year, and to have a good experience there. And so leaving the channel, the Olympic Park, that day as the Olympic champions, I found myself having thoughts of the kind of relationships that I needed to form, the kind of the person I needed to be, and I don't think that always served me so well. In the years after that, it served me, but by the time I got to age 50, I was ready for a change. And in doing that, I've had to make some peace with those changes. And I like talking about that and sharing that with people. That has been a way of kind of unloading the backpack for me.
It's Craig Domann, the host of Pro Mindset Podcast. I want to thank you for listening or watching today's show. And you can catch us every week on the normal social media platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and all the listening podcast platforms. I hope you enjoyed today's show. And more importantly, I hope you gained a pro mindset insight. Please be sure to rate and review Pro Mindset Podcast. And I look forward to catching up with you on our next show.